Hello everyone, people, you are on the Kita Velika channel. Today's video will be 0. And let's see what we have inside here with. From the company Sr Suntour Raidon 32mm. This is a thick version of the 110mm axle. And, of course, to disassemble all this, I think you will need few tools. At least hexagons will be needed for special tools. I'm not sure what will be needed here. Or not. We'll now look at the fact that Don Santur has a lot of different modifications. I'm actually removing it right now to see how all these things are dismantled. And of course, before disassembling the fork completely, it is advisable to wash it. If this is 0, then there is no need to wash anything here. But you need to release the excess pressure. Not just how much to pump the fork, I will show you later in the video. There is nothing complicated here. So here, in principle, everything is now that we need to unscrew these 2 screws, the bolts that hold the rods of the fork itself are inside. Well, you should subscribe to the channel if you have NT already done so, because I see many people watch the channel and don't subscribe. That is, it's like a mess. So here we have it unscrewed to the left by 5. Here we have it already where the damper head is on 10. Or rather, most likely you will have to tap them in order to press the rods themselves out of the pants. The forks turn out. When you have already unscrewed the screw, tighten it a little by 3 at least and tap it a little on the bit itself. Take a hammer and just lightly. If you're lucky, it will all twitch slightly. So apparently it's gone and the heat is on. Applause. Unscrewed. Yes, everything was unscrewed. It's clear, and now we're taking off our pants. It's not a monitor. Everything here is simple and quick. Of course there's no oil here. I understand why, because it's going to be used as a thick lubricant. In principle, I probably won't fill in the only oil that I will wipe and moisten the foam rubber rings themselves. Fortunately they are here. In fact, we have foam rubber rings made of Teflon towers. I hope you can see that. There are actually somewhere here in this place another tower is where it is there. Far inside actually there are some more turrets. And here is actually the Teflon itself, which we have by the way, we squeeze the anthers. We shake them well, they are quite elastic, they take on their shape immediately, they come back. There is no such thing that they were clamped and they remained in this position, but now what will need to be cleaned out. Look, no, maybe there are chips, but that's for later. Now let's see what we have inside under the damper and what we have in the air spring. Is it possible to increase the stroke? And immediately I'll probably increase the stroke to the maximum. So, to unscrew it we will need a 207 head, but not a 26 at all. She climbs 27 just. Music. Oil, we have oil inside. And along the way mixed with some kind of lubricant. That there is some kind of thick kind of jelly that looks like some kind of jelly. Music, well, something like that. So well, in order to get to the spring itself, we will need to unscrew the bottom to unscrew it. We need a 24 open-end wrench. By the way, it wasn't too tight here. So in the future we will need to tighten it with the same force, not too much. So, what do I want to tell you? I want to tell you, you won't adjust the stroke. You won't make more or less, that's only if you drill and change this one. Here's the embedding stamp. Because as you can see, there's no place to insert a new one. It's kind of strange. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but as you can see here, it seems like I did. And miss anything at all. The fork initially doesn't even go 100 millimeters. There, 120 to 130, so if you lower it, then I'll separately show you how to lower the fork and just compress it, then it compresses somewhere around 130 to 140. There, plus or minus 5 millimeters. Maybe it was originally made on stock 140, and in order to remake it to 100 millimeters, for example, you will need to drill this hole and rearrange this whole one. Well, we figured out the air thing. In principle, in theory it can be remade, but this needs to be drilled with a small drill and rearranged. Just maybe someday try the stock, as they say, and try, but now it's most likely not collapsible. Just let's see how it looks like at least. Like this. Suntour, at least it says, and there's a sticker that it's a Suntour. Never open so as not to explode the cartridge like it's so English. So that's how you see it is not collapsible at all. If you compare all the previous cartridges that were there in Chinese forks in the same Suntours, here it is somehow so straight hard. The rebound is good. It usually comes back, you press it and it goes away, but here it's straight. Maybe, of course, I'm not. It has a crazy rebound. Well, just turned it out now. You see how slow it is. Just slow. Well, I advise you to ride on a fast rebound, because if there are a lot of unevenness, then the fork will have time to work out, and not like you are riding on a curb or on steps, for example, and while the fork has shrunk the next step, it won't have time to simply stretch out to its full height if it's simple. So, well, there's a lot inside. It's generally quiet. Yes, ironing is clean, well, except of course for the piston, except for the place where, of course, the piston is located. Here you need to highlight it and see all the clean remnants of the mask. Thick. Let me remind you once again that it was assembled using thick lubricant, and I'll probably also put it back together using thick lubricant. In principle, I looked at the pants, everything was clean. On the rag, there was nothing left, no shavings or any strange substances, everything was perfectly clean. So now I'm collecting it all. I'll just lubricate it back with a simple ring lubricant where the rubber bands are. In general, where we have aluminum. And what else did I want? And these foam rings, Then when I put them on, I'll still drip them a little. Even though they were normal, they were soaked in oil, but still a little bit again they need to be blotted. They turned out to be a little dry. So what, by the way? The threads here, by the way, can also be lubricated a little. Applause you. Also don't need to tighten them too much, just all the way. And literally applied a little bit of grease to the rubber band too, so that it would be easier to tighten and would NT accidentally sand it. Of course, that's all. Tighten it with a powder wrench if anyone doesn't have one, but be very careful because it's still more reliable with a socket head. Yes, there are still traces where the contact occurs, but the likelihood that the edges will bond is just that slow. Well, I'll also apply calcium lubricant to the spring itself because I wiped it here. In principle, too, you don't need a lot. So suddenly water gets in so that it doesn't rust. And on the bottom slipper too. Or whatever it's correctly called. Down cape. In general, you understand that. Here, in principle, it was, in principle, tightened by hand. You can say it was twisted without any effort. It was with the left hand, it's just more and more, and there's no need to put the springs on the legs so that later they can be put on the anthers. We put foam rings. Well, we drip some oil. Well, a little lubricant on the anthers themselves. Of course, the excess will be squeezed out at the beginning, and it's advisable to take a rag with you so that all this can be done, then quickly wipe. How do you ride if you suddenly stopped somewhere? Quickly wiped. We went further. But now I want to check how much real travel there is. It's just that the fork is not inflated. I squeeze it all the way. And then from this place I just measure how much the actual travel itself we need to see on the fork. What else is there? In principle, probably if you change the mortgage, you are where there is an air spring and a simple steel negative spring, then you can probably add even more stroke because nothing interferes with the stroke here probably. How many more 20 millimeters can you add now from this fat one? Stripes. I will now pump up the fork and according to how much travel there is now. How much to pump the fork exactly? Sr right. Don 32 and there Samsung 32 some. I now here is a picture, here is a mistake, and it will say what weight, how much to pump everything accordingly. How many kilograms, how long to go I have. For example 71, that means but now remember, yes, there was a bold imprint, just that stripe. This is the maximum deflated state. Now from here the edges and we have 120 millimeters, that is we initially have 120 strokes in this fork. If there, as I said at the beginning of the video, in the middle of the video, throughout video, drill small holes and place the crossbar in other places, then it will be possible to make 100 millimeters and 140 even, because this is the distance that we still have freely, which is 13 millimeters. That is, as if a reserve of 130 can be made stably, 130 can still be made because there may be 3 millimeters left in general. This is we have. So don't believe those who say that there you can adjust the stroke in a very simple way. Yes, you can buy it separately, by the way, or find a donor rod length and change it there, for example, ready-made mortgages, but it's easier. It seems to me that you can drill it yourself, and that's it. And that's all. Andrei Konotov was with you. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit red button, like it. Good luck everyone, see you again.